I thought it somehow always slips off the agenda, and Jill and I just had a word about this, that there should always be a section for Chair's introductory remarks. But I'll come to that after apologies for absence. So are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so we have apologies from Councillor Tomlins due to illness and Councillor Suker due to a travel commitment.
Thank you. So if we could just have a little bit of introduction from myself. I am aware that it's not just this committee, it's also the council and other committees, that there is always a question when we come to look at the minutes about matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere in this agenda. So I thought I would just say something about how the agenda is reached for this committee, and I assume that it's the way in which the agendas are reached for the other committees and also for the council. And that is that the agenda is the subject of discussion, informal and collegial discussion between the chair, and at the moment I'm the chair, and the town clerk, about 3 days before the agenda has to be published. And we use the minutes of previous meetings of this committee to drive the decision about what is then on the agenda. And there will be items which are being addressed that are currently in train, which have not actually come to fruition yet, and which we decide need not to go on the agenda that we're talking about. We also have in mind that we do actually have to keep the agenda manageable. It shouldn't be too long, and I do try to keep the meetings down to a maximum of an hour and a half, though we often do go over that. So that's the process by which we come to the agenda, and I have to say that the agenda is the responsibility of the chair of the committee. It's not the town clerk's responsibility, the buck stops with the chair of the committee. So any objections to what is included or not included in the agenda should be addressed to the chair. The second thing I want to say about agenda setting is that I do think it's very important that all members of the committee, and I'm particularly thinking of co-opted members of the committee, have an opportunity to suggest agenda items. So what I propose to do from the next meeting onwards is that about a week before the informal meeting between the town clerk and myself, I will invite members of this committee to submit agenda items to me as chair of the committee. However, I do not wish to be overwhelmed with items to the agenda, because that will mean an overwhelming agenda. So I'm going to propose a limit that each member of this committee can suggest one item for the following agenda, and that within a year, a calendar year, no member of the committee can submit more than 6 suggestions. So that will, it's a little bit like, you know, the objections at Wimbledon. You have a limited number of disagreements with the umpire, and the umpire is the chair of the committee. And it still remains the responsibility of the chair to use the chair's discretion to decide whether or not to accept these items for the agenda. Now, I'm suggesting that I don't want a great discussion about it. It seems to me to be a way of relaxing some of the tension that there does seem to be about the way this agenda is arrived at, and I suspect other agendas for other committees. And I would hope that you would support what I've suggested. Councillor Black.
I can understand some of the frustrations, but I would suggest this really is, in effect, an alteration to the standing orders.
Yes, I knew you would say that.
I really think that the standing orders working group, which is going to have to be reconstituted anyway because of things like the terms of reference of committees and so on, should have a look at that. I can understand the reasons for it. My concern is that less popular items run the risk of perhaps being put to the back of the queue too frequently. As I say, there is an issue, and we have had a long problem with items having to be deferred because of the sheer workload issues and the staffing issues. We hopefully will be coming out of that, and I think the town clerk's done an excellent job for this meeting to get so many items off that list. But I would not be very supportive of that at this meeting, and I think that this is a matter for the standing orders group.
Well, my response to that is that we do actually have to have an element of trust in this council, and I think we have developed a sense of collegiality, and I do think that this is a way of liberalising the system, and that actually to spend a lot of time looking at it at standing orders would probably not be terribly sensible and rather heavy-handed, but that's my thought for council.
Thank you. Could I just comment that while it sounds wonderful to have the option of coming on 6 times, you sort of look at the number of people that are here, and we all took advantage of 6 occasions. That would be a huge number. I'm just wondering whether it should be reduced slightly so that you know we choose our items carefully.
Yes. Well, you're quite right, and I had assumed that people wouldn't necessarily use their 6 opportunities, that indeed it would be a rare occurrence when people suggested items to the agenda, but you may be right, maybe we should reduce it to 3. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but I just, I will consider doing that for setting the agenda for the next committee meeting of this committee, and we'll see. I think we should learn by experience and see how it goes. But I can hear that there will be objections from certain quarters. So I'm proposing to move on now, unless it's a different point.
I will very strongly object, and I do think this is a negation of what standing orders should be. We have to find practical ways of working, Councillor Anderson. I agree fundamentally with that, but this is not the way to do it. And there is a historic legacy that we have to overcome, and it hasn't been overcome yet. That's my opinion.
Okay, I'll decide how to deal with this for the next meeting. If people want to send me suggestions, feel free to, and I'll see, with working with the town clerk, how we can handle them.
Yeah.
So I'll send a note round a week before the next meeting.
Will my objection be noted, please, in the minutes?
Yes, I will.
We're not having a vote, are we?
Pardon?
We're not having a vote, are we?
No, we're not having a vote about
I don't know what you're-
objection to the principle.
The chair was just reading the statement out. What's
No,
I don't know why you're querying it.
With respect,
Well,
Councillor Franklin, it was a specific proposal which we are not voting on. I'm registering my opposition to that proposal.
Okay.
I have minuted that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go to item 2, declarations of interest. To receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests from members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda. Item 3, minutes of the Heritage and Townscape Committee, which are attachment 1. And this is to receive the minutes of the Heritage and Townscape Committee held on the 13th of November 2023, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere in this agenda. Yes, Councillor.
Yes, I mean, I want to first of all say that I think that hopefully the town council resources have turned the corner now, and I'm very pleased to see that the safety orders went out, that we've got the meeting with National Rail, and also that there are other meetings in train, and I do welcome that, and that takes a large number of things off the list that Councillor Tuka and I constantly refer to. There are one or two things that we're still concerned about. Design of the bus shelter, the meeting with Stagecoach, and I really think that now we've got safety audits, the meeting with Stagecoach as a participant is absolutely critical to have that. If the operator isn't there, the rest of it will fall. There are one or two other things on the terms of reference for the tourism forum, location of the Tourist Information Centre, infrared cameras, and DDC links about auto payment in the toilets.
Some of those we have addressed.
Yes. The tourism forum, the scope has been adopted by council on the 18th of December, and I have been in contact with people that are going to be attending the forum, and there will be invitations. Once I set a date, there will be invitations shared.
Thank you.
This month.
And there was, I can't remember, but there were other various
Sorry,
issues.
yeah. So design of the bus shelter. So members have been shared now these safety audits, and I have contacted you all to let you know and shared the safety audits with you.
Yes.
And there has been a suggestion that this will go to full council.
Yes.
So there will be a debate at full council to discuss how members want to proceed. And clearly, it's very important that at that meeting on full council, that members are very clear about what it is they want to achieve. Because if it's something about the design of the bus stand, it's not appropriate to have that conversation with Stagecoach, because they are not actually in a position to suggest or even agree a different design. If it's to do with the bus timetable and the frequency of buses, then it will be appropriate to approach Stagecoach. So I think that's what we need to do in the debate at council, is to be very clear about what it is we want to seek to achieve. If it's again talking about the design of the bus stand, Stagecoach will not be an appropriate authority or person to consult with, because they don't have any control over the design. They deal with the buses and the bus frequency.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yes, Mrs. George.
Can I just query something there? Because the design of the bus stop, or the bus shelter, yes, I completely understand, is not a Stagecoach issue. But is the council not addressing the issue of where the bus stop currently is? Is that not part of that conversation? The Stagecoach, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Maid.
What, yeah, oh, sorry. Yeah, no, there's been the safety audits now,
Yes.
and the safety audits are based on what the KCC, as the highways provider for the county, had put forward. So the safety audits have come to their conclusion, which they haven't actually asked for the bus stand to be moved, and KCC are the ones that decide where the bus stand will be, but Stagecoach do not. So although Stagecoach can be a part of one of the independent members of a meeting that we will be having, Stagecoach will not decide it, because it's a highways issue. So we really need, that's why we need to discuss this at the next town council meeting, so we could actually say, right, these are the safety audits now, where do we go from here? And then everybody can discuss that, and we can decide what our objectives are to get that moved and get some sensibility around the parking of buses in this town.
Okay,
so
thank you.
that's okay. But yeah, that's the way it needs to be done, I'm afraid. Sorry, but we will get there.
Yeah.
We will get there. Thank you for that. So.
Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to, Chair, recommend the acceptance of the previous minutes, if that's okay.
Thank you. Anybody second?
Yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Brown and Councillor Thompson. Shall we all vote?
One can't drink tea and get ones.
Thank you.
So yes,
Item
I think-
4.
yeah, thank you.
Item 4, public participation. 20-minute session was set aside for members of the public to make representations. Have we had any?
We have, yes.
Really?
Hello. In actual fact, in the last few minutes, you've preempted some of what I wanted to talk about. I haven't seen the road safety audit stage 3 yet, So I'm keen to see that. I've seen stages 1 and 2, but not stage 3. Okay, so my name is Christina Glynn, and I'm addressing you this evening in relation to agenda item 3, the minutes of the Heritage and Townscape Committee meeting held 13th of November 23, attachment 1, reference HT 1123-6, which relates to a debate about street furniture for the Guildhall forecourt. The topics under discussion were planters and graphics for the bus shelter, both of which were included in the project plans, and sides to the bus shelter, additional benches, bike racks and bins, which were outside of project scope and funding. However, what really stood out for me, the elephant in the room, was bus stand B, and that the funding contingency within the project may only be used towards planters and graphics, or perhaps negotiated towards other street furniture enhancements once it is established that no further spend on the highway is required. Therefore, the outcomes from the Heritage and Townscape debate on street furniture are dependent on whether further spending on the highway is required, and yet the question of highway adjustments for the bus stands was not discussed in that meeting and has not made it onto tonight's agenda either, although of course now. Residents often ask me, what's happening to the bus stop on the corner? When will it be moved? And I have to respond that I don't know, that it is not on the agenda. It concerns me that time is slipping. The final completion and handover date is fast approaching, and yet the public is not aware of any progress being made in relation to the position of bus stand B on the corner of Cattle Market. Please may we have an update on how and when the problem of bus stand B is to be resolved. And then, for information only, also in relation to HT 1123-6, regarding the lack of a second drop curb in front of the premises carpenters, I'm able to advise that this drop curb was removed from the project in response to road safety audit stage 1, when it was determined that crossing the road in front of carpenters was unsafe due to the position of the bus stands, and it was agreed that anyone wishing to cross the road should do so at the zebra crossing in front of Costa. This information was provided to me by DDC in response to a Freedom of Information request relating to the bus stands. There we go. I'm very keen to see the road safety audit stage 3.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, those safety audits will be discussed at the next town council meeting, so they will be then in the public domain, so that you will be able to see them. And as to position of the bus stand, it obviously is an ongoing issue, which we've already had discussion. It's the Kent County Council Highways Department that is responsible for the position of the bus stand. Is that right?
And also, obviously for this project, it was Dover District Council as well. So it was, and I know that there has been a meeting with the design person from KCC and the DDC project officer with some of the town councillors here. I wasn't present there, so I can't comment on what was discussed, but I know that that was part of the conversation that took place. So that's why it's very important at the full council meeting that members obviously look at the safety audits, then really we need to drill down at that meeting what it is we're seeking to achieve. If it is about the frequency of the buses, if it is about a design change that wants to be discussed, so that we make sure we are inviting the key people to those meetings. Otherwise, it's no good inviting the wrong people to discuss an item that they can't actually address.
Yes. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Councillor Marie.
Yeah, just to clarify that, it was myself, Councillor Wiles, Councillor Mallet and Councillor Breen that attended that meeting on the square with the DDC project officer and the KCC design team.
And when was that meeting?
That was when we first came in, so that was May, end of May, June time.
Okay. But it wasn't minuted?
That wasn't minuted, it was a
There's no
formal meeting. We asked the DDC project manager to send the safety audits, and obviously the safety audits now come through. Now the mayor's asked for it to be taken to full council, it can be discussed there and something can be done about it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So I think now we move on from public participation to item 5, the historic boundary wall at Empire Cinema, Dell Street, Sandwich, and the town clerk to share a verbal report.
Thank you, Chair. So it is a brief report, but I do now have the final proposal that has been agreed by the Dover District Council Principal Heritage Officer and Hipperson's the contractor doing the work. So they are scheduled to do that work in the next 6 weeks. It will be dependent on the weather. And obviously we have had due consultation with the neighbouring property as well as the tenant that's in the neighbouring property. So that work is all in hand. It has been scheduled with the contractor, and that should be taking place in the next 6 weeks.
Excellent, thank you. And I walked past it the other day and saw the work happening, so that's all very encouraging, thank you. Item 6, the Network Rail Community Event, attachment 2. And this is an event which comes out of a report that I wrote about an individual, a Sandwich resident, who was a temporary resident, who was trapped at the Woodensborough Road level crossing, and I wrote, or the town clerk included my report in a letter to Network Rail, and they came back offering a meeting. We are putting out notices about this meeting, and we do need to publicise it rather more, I feel. The structure of the meeting I'm still not quite clear about, because we're talking 2.5 hours, so perhaps the town clerk could tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the proposal is this will be a drop-in session. So the reason that Network Rail have chosen such a wide period, 2.5 hours, is to give everybody an opportunity to actually attend. So if you don't finish work until 6 p.m, you still have an opportunity to come along, because some of the people actually attending this opportunity are travelling all the way from Wales as well. So they need to have, obviously, once they've travelled here, they need, 2.5 hours is enough time to have the rest before they are travelling back again. So it is a drop-in session, so people don't need to worry about getting here for 5 p.m. They will be here until 7:30 p.m. And I hope that everybody in the community takes the opportunity to come along and hear from the experts.
Because actually this notice doesn't say it's a drop-in session. It says informative talk, which makes it sound as though there's going to be a talk and Q&A and all the rest. So maybe the wording needs adjusting. Yes.
So there will be an element of them speaking as well. It's not
Okay.
just a Q&A. They will be, have information with them. So it will be just quite informal. So it's not that you've got to arrive at 5 p.m. to listen to them start talking, but they will be doing talks throughout that period. And it's really just to make sure that people have an opportunity in the 2.5 hours to drop in and not to worry that they don't get there for 5 p.m.
I think I would like, yes, Councillor Ripley, yeah.
I was just going to say perhaps it might be helpful to have some more of that information on there, because when I read it I thought, oh my god, it's 2.5 hours. Yeah.
No.
They don't do that. So
I think we need to make it clear that you can turn up, roll up when you want,
Yes.
and you will be heard,
Yes.
and there will be answers to your questions.
Yes, absolutely.
Councillor Black.
Yeah, I've circulated this on all of the Facebook pages that I subscribe to. I'm happy to do that again with some more amplification, because it was just this, and we have had one or two people asking questions, and I've said, well, why don't you turn up and ask Network Rail, whatever you, which is what I think the better thing is, rather than any of us trying to communicate on their part. But it would be, I think, as others have suggested, helpful to have a little bit of an idea of, sorry, I'll take this off, to have the format clearer, so that people are not concerned. I mean, I have people said, 2.5 hours?
Yes, right.
Even I would get bored after 2.5 hours talking about track circuits, believe me.
So we do need to change the wording, I think.
Yes, I'm happy to change the wording, and I would say as well, if anybody has any actual questions before the session, please do share them as well, because if I can feed queries through, they can come armed with responses. So I think that would be really helpful as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Item 7, public conveniences on Sandwich Quay. The town clerk to provide a verbal report on the current situation with access for the accessible toilets on Sandwich Quay.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm happy to report that now the payment function on the disabled toilet has been disabled. So there is now no need to pay 40 pence. The actual access now is with a radar key, and I know that there are 2 businesses in the locality that have offered to have spare radar keys if there is anybody that arrives and doesn't have one personally. So I'm going to take them up on that offer. There is a small repair still outstanding because the door sometimes doesn't quite stay secure enough. So the caretakers are going to undertake that this week.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just ask the town clerk if signage could be put up to say about the radar keys, so that anybody that's a visitor to the town and they haven't brought theirs with them would know where to go and collect that if possible?
Of course.
Thank you.
Very good. Item 8, Whitefriars Meadow Fellowship Walk update. The committee to receive a written report from Councillor Shuker with an update on the situation with the site following the planning inspector dismissal of the appeal, attachment 3. And the recommendation is that the Heritage and Townscape Committee note the update provided on this matter. And I did get a message that you might have an additional update.
I'm sorry, nothing was received prior to the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to ask, if I may, Chair, that if the Dover District Council don't follow this up, that this perhaps gets escalated up to full council so that something is done. We've all tonight been here to hear, unfortunately, about the from the conservation officer who had very poor responses to the number 57, the limes, and I think most people in this room, and including I speak for Councillor Morehouse, would not like to see the Fellowship Walk, now it's lost its appeal hearing, that it ends up like 57 the limes. I think that we need to strike quite quickly and with follow-up action. So although I believe it said that the DDC officer 21 days has now expired and they need to issue this section 215 notice, I think we do really need to push on this to make sure Dover District Council do what they say they're going to do, and not that a lengthy time expires before we have to keep nudging them to undertake their work. So I would ask that possibly this is raised, that if we don't hear anything, perhaps by the end of the month it could be raised onto full council.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. I have sent the email to ask for the latest update, so I will share that with all members when that comes through. But if, as you say, there is nothing forthcoming, I will talk to you about an agenda item.
Thank you very much, that'd be very kind of you.
Okay, Councillor.
Yes, just for information that I had a coffee meeting with Councillor Friend on Saturday after being away for the festive period. He did say to me there is an update. He's going to send it to the town clerk to be distributed amongst the councillors.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? So the recommendation is that the Heritage and Townscape Committee note the update provided on this matter.
Recommend noting the report.
Anybody seconding? Councillor Ripley. So shall we all vote? So those in favour, noting. So future projects. This is item 9. Future projects for the Heritage and Townscape Committee. Attachment 4. And we've had a number of scoping documents completed, not all of them. And
There's another one that came.
additional one from Councillor Ripley. Okay, so they should all.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So what I suggest we do is we look at these and make comments. I have to say that generally I found them very encouraging. I mean, I don't know whether the rest of you did, but I felt that, you know, we are being proactive as a committee, which was what I always hoped we would be, in identifying issues where we might be able to do something. The one thing that I felt was missing from all of them, and I include my own, is any idea of getting to the costings, because that's also, and who would bear the cost. So I think that's something that we do need to address at some point.
I did have that in the one for the cycle.
Right.
I did for the cycle racks. I did
Yes.
say that we would look at costings
Yes.
and see where we could get the funding for the cycle
Yes.
racks.
And actually the bus.
There's
one,
quite a lot in
there
the
is
bus.
scrapbook. Okay, I take it all back. Rewind that. I didn't say.
Okay.
Okay, so shall we look first of all at Councillor Black's project for community transport? I don't know if you want to introduce it, Councillor Black, or if people have immediate questions which they would like
Can
to
I
ask.
just very briefly summarise what I think the critical issues are? We need to know how wide we're going to extend this service, if we have one. Secondly, what kind of service is a section 19 or section 22, and that's outlined there. And thirdly, how we would undertake the market research to ascertain whether there is a need. And interestingly, Faversham have admitted that they haven't done very much, and they're not quite sure how it's going to work. They're much bigger than us, and I think they've got better financial resources, and they got a big grant from KCC to set it up. So I think, to me, those are the three critical things, but other people may have additional points they wish to raise.
Yes. Mrs. George?
I do believe that the research needs to be pretty thorough,
Yes.
and it needs to be outside of the immediate Sandwich area. We need to make sure we capture as many people as possible, because this issue comes up when we, in town team, whenever we're talking about traffic and the buses being an issue because they're heavy and so on and so forth. And then got people who say, well, do we need these big buses? And then you've got a lot of others who will say, hang on a minute, you do away with the buses, we don't have a trade-in sandwich, people cannot get in. But where and how often, where that bus runs, I think is really important, and what usage would come to it.
This is one of the critical questions. Do you take it to Sandwich Ward for DDC purposes, which would include Woodnesborough and Sandwich Bay? I'm not sure there's tremendous demand from Sandwich Bay, but who knows? Or do you take it to the KCC Sandwich Ward, which is much wider and much more diverse? My suggestion is start small and build it up.
Yes.
So Woodnesborough certainly, but by the time you start doing Ash, Worth.
No, I think my view has always been, I've always been very keen on thinking about a community bus, that it would be to bring in the edges of Sandwich. So you say not Sandwich Bay, but Sandown Lees is really set apart from Sandwich. And it would really be preferable if people didn't have to get into their cars and come in here and park. If there were a regular little bus,
Yes.
I don't think a big bus, a little bus, and it's areas sort of down towards the aqua park and so on. I mean, you're always arguing that the aqua park is bringing people in. I have my doubts, but if there were a little bus, maybe it's possible. So and also the Jubilee Centre and the station and all those places where if there were, but it would be expensive, and I don't think there's any doubt a proper shuttle bus doing a loop round Sandwich every day of the week.
I think we tried these before with community buses, they just don't pay, don't they? We've had, we had the little bus, you dial a ride, you phone them up, come in from Hunjum and what's up on the market day, where they come in from all the little villages out in Ashley, Studdle, but over here Kent County Council, I think we did a grant to them once. But it just, at the end of the day, it just wasn't reasonable.
Right.
It's a lovely idea, but the cost involved is astronomical.
Yes,
Well, Faversham have gone for the one of actually having a route,
yes,
and they'll do that route 6 times a day,
yes,
and on 2 days of the week, which I think coincide with at least one of their market days, they will do the additional villages. That's their approach. The other approach, which is the different legislation, is a variant of diorama, which is what Thanet Community Transport do. And they do actually have some customers in Sandwich, although I don't know how many. The problem with that is that it is much more expensive in back office, because you have to have somebody to take bookings,
yes.
whereas a regular route you don't have to have, and you just need the volunteer drivers. So I think the first decision is how wide, and I think the second one then is let's look at the market research as to whether it's going to be a section 19 or a section 22, and we will need some money from somewhere to do the market research, because it may be, and this is where I disagree with some members, is that I don't think it could be just an online bit of research. Many of these people may not be particularly happy with online surveys and may need paper. That jacks our costs up, and also the distribution. And that's going to be the thing that we need to have a look at.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Sorry, when we did the traffic survey with all the residents in Sandwich, in fact, we printed the survey, and then volunteers went out and delivered it to every household. They were asked to return it to the Guildhall in a post box that was here, and that was where we got the data from. It does mean the questionnaire needs to be as simple as possible for following all the routing. But can I just ask one other question? Did Faversham give any feedback in terms of what they believe it's added to the volume of people coming into the town? Haven't they done that?
It hasn't actually started. They're setting it up, and this is the problem.
Right.
They haven't actually got it running, and I don't think there's many other places than Kent that do have. There are a number of dialer rides, and they've been almost all contracted out, with the exception of Thanet, to private coach operators. Thanet, I think, is one of the exceptions. They have a community transport thing, and they have had issues, I think, with KCC, or so they say. I don't know the truth of that.
Thank you.
My view is that, I mean, Councillor Franklin has suggested that it didn't make any money. But my view is that we shouldn't think of this as a service that will make a surplus. But it is a service that
You can't compare little tiny Sandwich with the size of Faversham, the massive great housing estates that are going on there. I mean, they've got 6 giant estates being built at the moment at Faversham, and what's going on at Thanet? In my opinion, it's far beyond our remit. It's going to be far too expensive.
Well, I think it needs to be explored. I mean, it's just, this is an exploration.
We do have
we haven't made, we need the data, and then we can make a decision.
You might need money for the data, don't you?
Well, we might, but Mrs. George has suggested that we may be able to.
I was involved in that. I know what was involved with that. I did a lot of the work on it. It was a lot of work.
Yes, I'll have one more comment from Councillor.
Well, perhaps I can speak to you and let's see how that I think that's a good way to get it started on a low-cost basis, but we'll need to get the volunteers kind of thing.
Yes, yes. Okay.
We had councillors who volunteered, and we split it up into certain roads, and it worked. It did work, yes. Councillor Franklin's right, it's hard work.
You didn't all have it, collate it all.
Yeah, we've all done political campaigning, so we all know about these things,
Yeah.
and you can do it quite quickly.
Yeah.
So, does anybody have any specific points to make about this scoping document, other than what we've already discussed?
Yeah, but I just have one question, Chair.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask Councillor Black if he was able to contact Councillor Franklin will know, but the pharmaceutical company called Pfizer's ran a route shuttle for their employees many years ago. I'm probably talking about, what, 12, 15 years ago. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering whether possibly they might have some information. I'm just trying to save everybody having to redo the same thing. So it was only applicable to Pfizer employees, but they ran shuttle buses that came into 2 drop-off points in the town, didn't they? And also to the outside villages. So I was just wondering if there was somebody that's still working there that had undertaken research or what have you for that, they might possibly be able to assist you.
Probably that, really. They're all separate companies there now, aren't they?
Oh,
Before it was just
oh,
Pfizer's and it was
Okay.
just, you
Well,
could write it off, but now it's
Yeah. I just meant the data they might have, because they obviously had to go through the same as what we're just about
They
to
ended up
do.
with Britannia coach from Dover though, and they had to pay.
It
I
did
think-
in the end.
I think we've discussed this enough. I think we should wish Councillor Blackwell and hope to see a report in June 2024 as to whether to progress or terminate the project.
Just quickly, to Councillor Back, I'm more than happy to give him some details of companies that I know that do these sorts of things. They're bigger companies, so they use other companies, like my company is an external, as a subcontractor.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll contact yourself as well,
Yeah.
and I'll see if Pfizer have got anyone, or even, and I'll ask Discovery. Discovery Park's a managed park,
Yeah.
and it may be that their management team have
That's,
some information.
would have the information. All I was trying to do was trying to help you with the data.
No, that's
and
great, thank you.
Facts and figures.
Thank you. Okay, the next one that I have is the project on audit of street furniture project from Councillor Schuker. And he's obviously not here at the moment, but this is basically to, as he says, to undertake an audit of street furniture along the route of the town trail, with the aim of producing a baseline register that details individual assets and their ownership. The idea is, as I understand it from this project, that we will have a detailed understanding of who owns each individual bench along the town trail, or whatever one's thinking about, and who is responsible for keeping it in a decent state of repair. And that seems like a very carefully contained project, which seems to me to be, personally, to be perfectly doable and a very sensible base from which to start in terms of keeping our street furniture in decent nick, because if you walk around the town, and not just including the town trail, which I'm not absolutely certain where the town trail goes, actually. You see these signs, and it says town trail, and they point in an odd direction, and I'm never quite sure what it is, but anyway, I presume Councillor Schuker knows what the town trail is. And from this baseline, we'll be able to develop new projects for improving the state of street furniture, assuming that we're responsible, or that we can persuade the responsible body to do it. Does anybody have any particular comments about this?
The town trail actually fixed it up, because I walked round twice with a lady from Dover District Council,
Okay,
and we did pick up the finger posts,
right,
because a lot of them are down or missing, aren't they?
they are.
And also the information board, because the information boards, they're all part of the town trail as well.
Okay.
So I think when I get her report back and I can tweak it,
And
say it's
we'll have
mine.
a scoping paper from you, Councillor Franklin, that would be very helpful. Okay, so,
Can I just say
yes.
that quite a few years back now, we did something similar within Sandwich, not necessarily following the town trail, but this was with respect to the possibility of looking at the Sandwich in Bloom competition. We walked around the town with Councillor Chandler and pointed out various things that were, in disrepair. And it is really quite complicated because lampposts, if they're sitting on the highways, then they come under KCC, and then you've got other parts that come under Dover. And in fact, the inner part of the town was almost in a worse condition than the outer part of the town. So it's not as, it may not be quite as simple as, I hope it is, but
I think possibly Councillor Shuker knows that, and that's why he
Yes.
says we have to start with that,
yeah,
with this baselining project, and then move on to what we do now,
Yeah.
once we know who owns what, who's responsible for what. Is that, I mean, is that what you think?
Yes, that is.
So we're happy to encourage him to go ahead with that.
Almost definitely.
Very good. Then we have, the one that I put up, guess what, home installation in conservation area and grade 2 listed property. And it overlaps very considerably, I note, with Councillor Carter's very similar scoping document for home insulation for residents in Sandwich. That's not just the conservation area and grade 2 listed properties. I mean, we have had this pre-meeting where we did talk about some of these issues. I'm still very exercised about them, and I didn't feel that, I mean, I hope you'll forgive me if you did think that I was raising an individual issue. I was trying to give an individual example in order to demonstrate a general issue. And I think Councillor Ripley was too, about how people with listed properties and living in the conservation area can go about getting their houses in a fit state to install heat pumps, because that is the future.
I agree entirely with what you've just said. It's not a personal thing.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. So I have included in my scoping document talking to cabinet members, DVC cabinet members, which I thought might help in trying to shift things. And I picked the cabinet member concerned with climate change and environment, and another one, planning and built environment cabinet member. So that's what I propose to do. Are people happy with what I've said I will do? And I've given some key dates, and I've said that I'm going to write to Councillors Beer and Biggs and the key DVC planning and conservation officers in early January 2024, and hope that they will turn up at our next meeting. Invite them to. They don't have to come to a pre-meeting, do they? They can just come to this meeting.
You're talking about the councillors?
The councillors
Yes.
and the officers.
I mean, it depends on the situation. The officers won't always attend a meeting like this because it's a public meeting, and I think, you know, there is merit in inviting the elected members. I think that would be quite helpful.
Okay, so let's cross out key DDC planning and conservation officers under key milestones number 1, and just leave it with Councillors Beer and Biggs, and invite them to this meeting, and talk to them about our frustrations, because they are real, and see what can be done. Okay. So are you happy for me to go ahead with that? Any other comments? Okay, the next one is also me, and this is this Slow Ways National Walking Network. And this is, again, a proposal that I contact local walking groups, local cycling groups. What the National Walking Network is asking for is that 6 routes that they have identified, which are walking routes and cycling routes, to Deal, Barham, Minster, Canterbury, Northbourne and Ramsgate, all from here, all from this town, need to be surveyed and reviewed. Surveyed as to how appropriate they are for walkers and cyclists, and reviewed. And there are reviews saying I enjoyed this, or I found this a struggle, on the National Walking Network website. So, and I've said that I'll contact local walking groups and local cycling groups.
There is a Dover District Council, Kent County Council. There is a lot of walking. I've got little maps, so I could pop round and show you them.
Yes, there are lots.
Lots of them, even just around the Sandwich area.
Yes.
And walking inside.
Yes, but they have identified, the National Walking Network
Yeah, there is.
have
Yeah.
identified these 6 routes, and it's the 6 routes that they want
Yeah.
surveyed and
Because we're on the Dover to Inverness route, aren't we? Is it sort of called Route 1?
Yes, Route 1, yes, but we're also on Route 15.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll
So-
take the Dover bit.
So, I'll contact local walking and cycling groups and ask them to participate in this. Yes.
Can I just ask, Sandwich Medical Practice Social Prescribers, give me a clue.
Okay. I think most medical practices do now have somebody who looks after what they call social prescribing, which is prescriptions for patients to do usually some sort of activity
Okay.
or participate in a course or something. And it, as I understand it, peer review stuff indicates that this can be a very much more effective way than drugs of dealing with certain problems. And there is somebody at Sandwich Medical Practice who is in charge of social prescribing. So I know that from being a Jubilee Centre trustee, because they're talking about social prescribing. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. Then Councillor Carter, as I say, I think yours very much overlaps with the one that I've identified for the conservation area and the listed buildings. So
Yeah, indeed, yeah. I believe mine, just to take the floor just on my one, my one was actually in conjunction with Councillor Mallet at the time. I don't know if you remember, because Councillor Mallet and myself are both sort of really quite keen to assist residents in the town, to particularly those perhaps on a lower income, to improve the ability to heat their homes and keep that heat in those homes. And so you could almost say, if you don't mind, Chair, that yours would probably be in an area that would be located probably in the north of the town, more so.
Absolutely.
And my project would actually be for those that are in the, not particularly just the south of the town, but in areas where the housing is obviously not conservation area, I'd say, so outside the conservation area. And basically what I wanted to do, and I think it's comes under the duty of the council to try and assist those who are perhaps living in homes, particularly rented homes, that are, and the landlords are not undertaking the duties that they should be doing to bring them up to standard. And as everybody's seen, there's the certificates for how insulated a home is and how suitable it is when you buy the property. And what I was doing, and I believe Councillor Mallet was of the same mind, was this would tie in with the thermal imaging cameras that both Councillor Mallet and I have been investigating recently, and we've got a meeting on Thursday, I believe, with the chappie from John from
Walbach.
Indeed, from Walmer. So to actually review the thermal. So this would tie in with this, but this is for those perhaps that are in the rental sector, or perhaps who are on a lower income, and they've got problems with condensation and all sorts of things like that, and it can very badly affect their healths. So and they're using the wrong type of heating, and they haven't got double glazing, and and being on a low income, they need to make sure things are up to standard. And those of us that perhaps got the money to do it to our own houses, are in a better position. So really I wanted to undertake something to help those who haven't got the ability to do that, find out about what can be done, what sort of insulation is readily available and what's the most effective insulation. It's no good perhaps somebody from a lower like income household think of installing solar panels or something like that, but perhaps if cavity wall insulation is possible with that sort of thing. And I did say about looking into, although the things that were in the scope was looking into what grants are possible for residents to take up, but not actually the council doing that for them, but just making them aware of what could be done is what I'm looking to actually do. So, and as I said, the things that were outside of the scope would be the things that would be the high cost items that possibly people that were on a high income could afford, things such as solar panels, heat source pumps and things like that. And as I said, I won't be applying, the council will not be applying for the grants for the residents, just looking into and advising them. So, and I believe this would be something I'm going to fit in with obviously I'm working full time, so I've given a longer period to get this done, liaison with both DDC officers, KCC officers, and in particular central government departments that undertake.
And I'd certainly join in with it.
And yeah, I'd be very happy for Councillor Mallet to work with me on this, and then hopefully to report back to the council. I was hoping by the end of the summer, so in 6 months' time, at the end of the summer, and then put something out, press release very early on in the autumn. I'm sort of talking about perhaps August, September time, so that it can be of benefit to the residents of Sandwich to try and get something in place, in time for the winter.
I can see your hand up, Councillor Malik, but I just want to say something. And then you can. So it seems to me that under the section what's out of scope, it would be helpful if you added in Sandwich Conservation Area, because my project will be
sure.
and listed buildings.
Yeah.
So if you could put that into that section.
Oh yeah, sure.
And what's in scope, perhaps you could particularly emphasise, you've mentioned rented dwellings, because that's a particular issue. If you can't persuade your landlord to insulate your house, that's a really big one. The other issue that has occurred to me is I'm not quite sure whether the dwellings in Sandwich South, the big Polders estate or whatever one wants to call it, whether they were built at a time when cavity wall insulation would make it, which no, they weren't. So that's another real problem. So I think perhaps if you added into what's in scope, rented dwellings, and dwellings for which cavity wall insulation is not available, because that's a real problem.
Of course.
Okay.
I'm going to contradict you.
Okay.
Residents of Sandwich. Now, one of the points I made when we were first talking about infrared cameras, and I think also covered by Alison, is her view that single glazed with secondary glazing and thick curtains matched double glazing, where we can benefit Sandwich North is that to be able to, should we get an infrared camera, to be able to do a survey of an area where we can gauge whether it's double glazed, single glazed, secondary glazing and double glazing elsewhere, that you do need double glazing to have a real effect. Because I disagree with that.
Well, the infrared camera will give you the answer.
Yes,
you could do a nice little project.
Which would mean that we can have residents of Sandwich rather than residents of South Sandwich. Though I would say...
No, I'm not saying residents of South Sandwich, I'm saying because I'm covering the conservation area and
Or conservation.
and listed.
So I would say that you would, your property would be ideal for, measuring the amount of heat loss from a window.
Oh, we're happy. Come round any time.
Mm.
I'm sure it's losing masses.
Yes.
And up the chimneys as well.
Oh, yes.
Chair, may I just comment on what you said about the landlords? Because one thing I think you would have to be really careful about is if you then persuade the tenant that this would be a good idea, and then they go back to the landlord, of course it can put them in a really difficult position, because the landlord, we know, can just say, well, I'm not doing that, and the next thing is the rent is increased to the level where that tenant can't afford to stay there anymore. So I think in recommending to them that these are things that can be done, the wording of that would have to be quite careful, so that they didn't feel, oh yes, I can do this, and then find themselves in a bit of a predicament.
So, could I just come back on that?
Yes, but that's the last point.
So what this would be government guideline.
Yeah.
So basically it's just to assist those with government guidelines, but it could, the positive of it is that landlords that didn't want to pay out the money on it, if somebody is on a low income and they can get the insulation paid for free or a large percentage of it, the landlord would be getting his property insulated based on the person that's staying in their house on that income.
Okay.
So, but the most important overriding thing I wanted to say was we should be looking towards improving the lives of those that are living in this town, rich or poor.
Absolutely. And I would hope, and this is the final point I'm going to make, that both the work that I do and the work that you do, Paul, will inform us about the grants that are available, and that sort of information is obviously something that should go on the Sandwich Town Council website. And in fact, we must really gear up the website to informing people as to what is available as help for them. Okay, the next project is to review, Councillor Carter again, to review the availability of bicycle parking in the town via site surveys and research.
Oh, super, thank you. I'll be very brief on this one. Basically, this is just something, this is a bit of a hobby horse. I would have done this anyway if this hadn't come up at H&T committee, but it's just, obviously, I'm myself and Councillor Wiles are both very avid cyclists, so we prefer to cycle or walk into the town on a regular basis, and this is something that, as a cyclist, when you get off of your bicycle and instead of driving, when you're driving, everything's all signposted. You can, big signs, big blue and white signs saying letter P, so I'm parking this way, all sorts of things like that for motorists. But for cyclists, there's no signage to tell you where the cycle parking is. There's nothing to say exactly where it should be. One area in particular is King Street, where both Councillor Wiles and I park our bicycles on a regular basis. And on King Street in the summer, the gardens are used by the coffee shops there. And if you go there on a very hot day in June or July, you will see cyclists that have come in from Deal or Ramsgate, and they've literally piled their bicycles against the wall of St Peter's Church grounds there, blocking the pavement. But you can't blame them, because where else do they park their bicycles? So, and we have got a number of bicycle racks in the town, but some of them are in the wrong places. And I think, as it was raised, cyclists need to be able to see them. They need to be access them quite readily. So saying that there's parking down on the quay is all very well and good, but when people are shopping in the town and their £2,000 bicycle is down on the quay, that's not suitable. So basically, I'll be undertaking the same, consulting with a large number of people. I'm going to do, I'm waiting for the weather to get a bit better, I'll be doing a survey of the current cycle racks, which I'll be superimposing on the map, and then I'll be doing a consultation to ask cyclists and also cycling clubs, if possible, where the best places are to put the cycle racks. So it won't be my opinion, it will be the opinion of other cyclists, you know, and cycle clubs and what have you like that. And then hopefully seeing what can be done for the, you know, an initiative to get new cycle racks put in. Will KCC cough up the money to do that? Will DDC cough up the money to do that? And if neither of those do, then what other options are available to get? Because we do need, it has got to achieve an outcome.
Absolutely.
So,
Sorry, can I just stop? Sorry, Claire. We had an issue came up at the town team with respect to the signage to stop people cycling on the rope walk, and there are other places where the ground level signs need to be there. And I think you were going to have a word with one of the.
oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to incorporate that
Okay.
into this now, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
That's fine. Thank you.
And do you want to put that into what's in scope?
Yeah,
Signage,
okay.
signage for cyclists,
Yeah,
and signage to stop cyclists.
indeed. Yeah.
There was just to point out as well, last year, the year before last, I was trying to get public space protection orders in certain areas of the town, especially for no cycling and road walk. Mr. Mayor, I'm quite happy to share the details with you if you wish.
Oh, super. That'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Right, and we've just now got Stop Press, a scoping document from Councillor Ripley. Would you like to introduce it?
I would. Yes, and apologies, it didn't come in time for the agenda, but my laptop, in fact, wasn't working for many days, as we all know. Yeah. Anyway, it's basically about holiday lets in Sandwich, which I often describe as Airbnbs, although it covers a great many more than Airbnbs. And that's to, I just think it's very important as well that we realise that this is not anti-holiday lets in any way, shape or form. It's just really to get an overview and to make sure that any properties that are let for holiday rentals to visitors are properly regulated and sign up to all their relevant health and safety commitments, etc., etc. And if there are any issues to the residents, etc., other businesses that perhaps we could help resolve them. As I put in the out of scope part, we have no direct responsibility for this. All we can do is hopefully issue guidance and, you know, and help people resolve any issues that come up. Hopefully do that by inviting people to a seminar. I have to say, and you'll notice at the key milestones with delivery dates, I've said identify as many holiday lets in Sandwich as possible, and that is because every site you go on, 99% of the properties up there aren't identified by address or anything else, and sometimes you don't even get pictures of the outside of the properties, so you can't identify them that way. So it's very much a case of, you know, you get a picture of somebody's interior property and you haven't got a clue where it is really. So that's quite a difficult thing. So I would ask if any of you know of any holiday lets around, if you could perhaps email them to me, and then I can add them to my list, which is growing ever by the day, and see if I can put together some sort of much more conclusive list than I've got at the moment, which is a little bit airy-fairy, but it's getting bigger actually. And also I have to say that online, you'd think that there wouldn't be much information about guidance and you know, business rates and council rates. It's absolutely swamped with it at the moment. So I'm putting together all sorts of information about that as well. And I'm in touch with Dover District Council Tourism as well. I'm also in touch with local Airbnb owners and residents that have potential issues with certain properties too. So it's really just a case of getting all this information together and hopefully being in a position to, you know, give this seminar, get together and put together a seminar by the end of, well, hopefully by the summer sometime.
That sounds excellent. I just wanted, I mean, second homes are not the same, obviously,
No,
as
they're not.
holiday lets, although sometimes second homes
Well,
are also holiday lets.
Yes, exactly, they can be both and there are quite
Yeah.
a lot. And I have to say, the original scoping document that I had, which got lost in the ether previously, it had slightly different key milestones on there. And one of them that I haven't put on this one is identify any problems regarding holiday lets outside the system, of which there are some, which means they're not, well, they're just, you know, on the dark side of things, and provide potential solutions, you know, about that. So that's right.
These holiday lets, are these just buildings, or are you actually talking about, say, established leisure park?
No, just Airbnb stuff.
Well, it's,
Airbnb.
it's holiday lets, yes.
Because they have got some nice accommodation down there, which is not part of the caravan site, you know,
Yeah,
they've got
Yeah.
some really
No, this-
beautiful lets down there.
yeah, for sure, yeah.
You know, flats, and one of them is actually beautiful because it's got like a downstairs for a disabled person, you know, with ensuite, then upstairs for, you know, the family. So,
Well, that would be included,
Yes,
wouldn't
it would, yeah,
I
it
mean,
would.
because they might have, you know, they're good practitioners,
Yeah.
and at a seminar, it's always a good idea to have some
got
good
some
practice.
really nice places, yeah.
You know, I'm making money and I'm a good practitioner.
Yeah.
Yes, it's looking at all aspects of it, you know, the good side of things as well as the perhaps side that
Yeah.
needs a little bit of
Because one of my
addressing.
friends was having his house renovated, and quite large, and he actually moved into one of them flats, a unit, he was in for about 6 months and he loved it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, any other comments, or are we happy with that project?
That's fine.
Okay, so I think we're getting to the end of the meeting, are we not?
Yeah.
So, that's it. Just getting to, yes, the date and time of the next meeting is Monday the 12th of February at 18:30 in the council chamber. Thank you.